the end of that sequence, he's saying, and he's like squirting the water into the mouth. I don't know why that cracked me up so much, but it's just, it's so good. It's so good.
Welcome to Your Inner Child is an Idiot, the podcast where we look back on the movies from your childhood and decide if they were any good to begin with. 85% there. My name's Damon.
I'm DJ. Hello.
Hello. We're trying a new format today.
Spoopy season.
It is spoopy season, as people say. And sometimes you put that in a comic and then you find the percentage of the population who don't say that. And you're like, I think there's a typo in your comic. I'm like, no, there isn't. Thank you, though, for reading.
Would that there were.
So we're doing a new format today where we're going to be recording our intros, and I know what movie we're going to be reviewing, but my dear friend DJ does not.
I have no idea. So these thoughts, truly, now, we never prepare. Certainly not for this part. I have no idea what's going to happen.
And it might result in interesting tape, and it might just sort of result in the same amount of banter that we usually have.
Given the total lack of preparation that we normally bring to the, I don't think it's going to be much different.
I mean, what are you going to do? Just start screaming when I say the name of the movie? Just like a Price is Right contestant? Just because I withheld it from you?
Well, normally, if I don't know what something is, I still don't research because I don't want to change.
You don't want to spoil it by finding out who Xenon was, this girl of the 21st century.
Right. All right. Well, what are we doing? It's
this week. We will be watching Little Shop of Horrors, the musical from
Little Shop of Horrors,
1988 or 89.
Delightful. Rick Moranis, Steve Martin.
Vincent Gardenia, friend of the show, the late Vincent Gardenia from Death Wish and Moonstruck. He's here again, ladies and gentlemen, fan favorite, and not unpopular with the ladies who listen, I would imagine. He's not traditionally attractive. So, have you ever seen this movie before? Is that what I'm supposed to do in this instance?
Yeah.
I'll just interview you like you're a head of state.
Well, thank you for having me. Me and the first lady. Yes, I have seen this, and I have actually, I think we watched it last Halloween. So I've seen it somewhat recently.
Very nice.
As a kid, it's not like it was scary, but it was like, I think the amount of singing and puppetry was like too much for me. I was like, I don't know.
That's what scared you. That's what kept you up at night was, I don't want any puppets.
I don't know what's going on over here. There's too much singing. That's the guy from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. That's all I know about this. Mm-hmm. And watching it as an adult, I was like, this is pretty great. So I'm excited to watch this. I think if I recall correctly, there's a lot that I catch now. I wasn't taking notes then, so I'll be much better this time.
That's what's great. I've been taking notes since I was a child, so I always take notes when I go to the theater. Just to, track shots, Dutch angles, the price of popcorn as it rises throughout my lifetime. This might be my favorite musical movie.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I really enjoy this. I like...
Take that, The Blues Brothers, 1980.
Yeah, go fuck yourself. If you had more dismembering of Steve Martin, like I asked, like I wrote in, that would be one thing. But you refused everything I requested, so go fuck yourselves. I enjoy it because of the puppetry. I love some doo-wop singing, and I love a movie with
If I know one thing about you.
I love a movie with a woman with a speech impediment as well, which is also enjoyable.
I was going to bring up Audrey 1 because we have a special reference from our past with Audrey 1, and that is there was a restaurant here in Nashville, which, well, let's not get too specific because I don't know who knows this person. It was a restaurant that we went to regularly when we were roommates. That was probably my favorite place in town, or one of them. And the hostess that worked there, was she a server, or I don't know. She always greeted you, but we referred to her as Audrey because she looked like the woman in this movie.
I don't remember this woman. What are we talking about?
What? We have this special thing. I just described it as like this.
And then I break your heart by being like, who are you? And why is there a microphone in front of my face? Wait, what restaurant was it? You can tell me. No one's listening at this point.
No, here, I'll text it to you. There we go.
Ooh, perfect. Hold on. Okay. Yes, this is going to be great. This is great tape. I'm so glad we didn't discuss this beforehand. This is a moment you would never have gotten if you knew going in that this was going to be the movie.
It's not really like an insult to her.
I thought you were talking about the restaurant that you have texted me, but I still have no memory of this person.
It was
Did she have a severe bob like this?
Yeah, it was the main. She had like kind of shortish blonde hair. It was mostly like she had a similar. She was very slender, had a similar face. A little bit of like the kind of overbite, just to be frank about it. Beautiful woman, both the actress in this movie and the woman at the restaurant. Not that it matters what I think about it, but like
you're doing great. Just keep going.
Just flop sweat, just like
you look like Richard Nixon right now.
Why is he talking about the Irish all of a sudden?
I do remember that the hostess at this restaurant, she dies in the Broadway version, but she survives when she was at that restaurant. So that does make sense. That does track why we would call her Audrey 1. I love giving nicknames to side characters in my life, and I am ashamed that I formed no permanent file. I guess I had to... Whatever.
Wow. I thought we were going to have a little bit of a thread there to follow, but maybe you come up with something.
Wow. I'm sorry. I do remember as a kid, there was a Duncan Hines commercial, and the Four Tops were in the Duncan Hines commercial, and they did Sugar Pie Honey Bunch, but they changed it to Duncan Hines something else. And I remember my dad going, "That's the plant from Little Shop of Horrors." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And it was Levi Stubbs of the Four Tops.
I think we've talked about this in what episode, I don't know, but in an episode past, that the Four Tops is one of those of many groups from the 60s, the sort of vocal groups, the Temptations, Four Tops, the Spinners, what is the one that the
Proud Boys, the Imagineers?
No, those are different things. But there's a whole group of singers that now they're still going. Not only is it not the original members, in some cases, it's like maybe one. Some cases, it's zero of the original members. In some cases, they have multiple versions of these groups out, and it's bonkers. It's like going to see Little Shop of Horrors, where you're like, "What? Rick Moranis isn't here. Why would Rick Moranis be here?" You know what I mean? There's a
regional The Temptations going around.
Yeah. It's a thing.
Are any of the original Temptations in the Temptations?
I don't know, but I don't think so. I don't know, and we were talking about the Four Tops. I don't know. But.
So is it a Ship of Theseus type thing? Like when you remove each temptation and then just add new temptations, is it still the Temptations? A question that Axl Rose has been asking, not about the Temptations, but about Guns N' Roses.
But about the Four Tops, because that's the one he was originally in.
All right, wait, I just got onto the Temptations really hardcore.
I kept trying to steer you back. But
sorry. Sorry, Levi Stubbs. Also the voice of Mother Brain in 80s cartoons. In a similar vein, they were like, yeah, you've done a masculine-coded person with a traditionally woman's name in another movie, so why don't you be Mother Brain and just do the same voice?
Yeah.
It's weird.
And he was like, okay.
Yeah. Do you have a check for me or?
I'm expecting to enjoy this and maybe even more because I know that watching it, however recently it was, I noticed a lot of things that I didn't as a kid. And I think I will notice even more because I'll be taking little jot down notes.
True. And I also want to point out there is a fun Miriam Margolyes appearance in this. She's a British actress.
Okay.
That I have recently fallen in love with, as has the rest of the world, I feel like. She is someone who cannot filter herself on talk shows, so she is very short and to the point, but she's very charming and lovable. But she plays Steve Martin's nurse in this movie.
Oh, okay.
I think it's one of her first American roles.
Delightful.
You're going to love it.
All right. Well, let's watch The Little Shop of Horrors. And
let's do that now.
Let's go. I think the only way to handle a commercial for this is for you to go ahead and craft us a little ditty in the style of 60s doo-wop, advertising our Patreon page.
Wait, you're already crafting. You were already mid-craft.
Well,
so maybe
I'll play the bass part.
Oh, interesting. And then I'll craft the ditty around the bass part? Yeah. I mean, listen to yourself. This is songwriting?
I like you said that like it was so absurd.
I have no idea. I have no idea if it's absurd or absurd. There's no way for me to know.
Normal surd. Listen, you forget all that.
Okay. Consider it done.
If you want something like this, you gotta pay. Patreon.com/Your Inner Child is an Idiot. You can support the show. You can support at different levels. You can get your name read in the credits. You can get your name in the written credits. You can have your requests for new show topics shot to the top of the list. You can have Damon craft little ditties for you. That's a new thing we're going to be offering.
Okay. What level is that? Just so I know when to be sick.
It's $90 an episode. I will draw you a cartoon and Damon will write you a song. It just makes sense. Patreon.com/Your Inner Child is an Idiot. Of horror. Sorry.
Now that is clever. Because, like, the Patreon levels might be killing you, or...
Well, they start out cute.
When you enter your credit card information, they eat you?
They start out cute, but then...
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
They only want a small amount of blood. But then...
You gotta let this go. You gotta let the commercial end at some point.
You gotta just go ahead. Just go ahead. You were gonna do something funny. Just go ahead. Just do your thing. Do your little skit or whatever.
There was no skit. There was me saying, hey, we're back. We watched Little Shop of Horrors at Damon's behest.
Thank you.
For spoopy season. And I'm spooped. I'll tell you.
Consider me spooped.
Yeah. Whose turn is it to recap? I think it's got to be whoever's episode.
I think it's
right.
Okay, that's fair, I guess.
New rule.
Ladies and gentlemen, picture, if you will, early 1960s, New York City.
Shamalama ding dong. Sorry, I'm going to help you.
Kennedy, still very much alive. Skull very much intact.
I had to get specific with it.
We open on a corner flower shop that is not doing well financially.
Okay.
They just sit around all day. They don't have... I'm sorry, I'm getting the commercial break.
I appreciate the scene setting, but we don't need to watch the movie, okay?
I'm sorry, I'm getting a sign that we're running out of low on time. We're going to have to push Green Day until tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. It was going to be really clever to have Green Day on with the plants, but sometimes that's show business. We're just going to have to push them off.
Yeah, so just go ahead and start over. It's fine.
You're right. No. Lose all the Green Day stuff. The sweet-ass Green Day stuff.
Keep all this.
Anyway.
There's a little shop.
Mushnick's flower shop. Failing flower shop. It's got 3 employees. Mushnick, Seymour, Audrey. 1 for legal purposes. We find out that Seymour, Krellborn, nebbishy nerd, perhaps pimply according to songs, but I didn't see any. He found a small, what he assumes is some sort of Venus flytrap type plant when he was out shopping at a wholesale flower district the other day. And during a total eclipse of the sun, he found this new form of plant. He takes it back. He slowly realizes that it actually drinks blood after he pricks himself on some rose thorns.
Horrific.
So he starts feeding it blood, and whoa, wouldn't you know it? It starts creating business for the flower shop, which starts to become like a tourist site, and he starts getting more and more famous. Now, Audrey 1, he names the plant Audrey 2. That's why I keep specifying the numbers on the Audreys. Audrey 1 seems to be dating a physically and emotionally abusive sadomasochistic dentist, played by Steve Martin. And Audrey 2, who turns out can talk, by the way, convinces Seymour that he should kill her boyfriend and feed him to them. And so Seymour doesn't technically, in a legal sense, kill him, but he eventually gets possession of the dead body, chops it up, feeds it to the plant. Plant gets even bigger. Seymour gets even more famous. He eventually kills Mushnick. Eventually, the plant almost kills Audrey 1, but they destroy the plant and they live happily ever after in the suburbs until, lo and behold, camera pan down to garden bed and another little Audrey's down there. Little shop of horrors. End scene.
Dun, 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 dun.
One of my better ones, aside from the Green Day stuff that's definitely not going to make it into the episode.
Yeah. So that's our show.
Welcome back to Recapping Movies You Don't Have Time to Watch.
There's also an alternate ending, which we'll talk about at length, but we did watch the alternate ending. What we didn't watch, or I didn't watch, was the original movie. Apparently there was
I have seen the original movie in my life, but not for the purposes of this
There's
podcast.
a Roger Corman, like the original non-musical, and then they made an off-Broadway, and then I think eventually Broadway musical about it. And so this is an adaptation of the musical based on the original movie. And then
Correct.
there's also a cartoon, which we mentioned in the intro, which I vaguely remember.
The Roger Corman original is fun, mostly in watching it in relation to this film. On its own, it's not as fun. It's also fun because it's one of the earliest, if not the earliest, performance from Jack Nicholson, who plays Arthur Denton, who Bill Murray plays in this movie.
The masochistic dentist. He loves going to this dentist because he delivers pain, I guess. Very weird
and
choice.
That's how we know that Steve Martin is a true villain in this, is that he is a sadist who doesn't want a masochist.
Right.
He wants someone who does not want to be hurt.
Yeah.
And that's how we know he's real trouble.
Yeah.
That should be the perfect relationship, him and Arthur Denton. Arthur Denton wants to be hurt. Steve Martin wants to hurt people. But he doesn't like that Arthur Denton's into it.
Yeah.
So he deserved to be fed to a plant.
I think
that's just the justice system.
I think that's what we learned from this. So this is actually the same journey that Hairspray had, right? Because Hairspray started out as a movie, and then they made a musical based on the movie, and then made a movie musical based on the musical. Interesting. I wonder how many other things have followed that path.
Well, do you mean in terms of like being sort of a low budget movie and then a cult classic movie? Because I mean, there's plenty of movies that there's a Ghost musical, DJ.
But there's not a movie of the Ghost musical yet. So I think it's
That's
just
a great
that,
point.
and the musical, like this Little Shop of Horrors that we're talking about right now, vastly surpassed in terms of popularity the original and the music. I mean, by nature of a musical just being a movie is always going to have a way bigger potential audience than a musical, just because it like is a physical thing you have to go see, unless it becomes like.
And you don't have to pay $300 to go see, a Thursday matinee.
Well, if you had something like...
Go fuck yourself, Broadway. That's what I'm trying to say. That's mostly for Adam, who gets really angry when I criticize Broadway in that way.
I think I was always like, I've been in musicals and I like worked in musical theater, but I was always kind of like, because I didn't grow up with it, I was kind of like, yeah, some of them are good, but I think I'm generally a Broadway convert now, because I've been to New York a couple of times, seen a couple shows, and I'm like, I can see this. I just missed the boat early on because no one took me to New York when I was a child and spent
it's going to clear you up. If we take you to too many shows, you have to limit young boys to 2 shows a year. If you go over that, instantly queer.
Well, I saw enough growing up in Ohio. I didn't see good ones. That was I saw like I was in like mediocre ones where I saw community theater productions or whatever.
You're playing it. This fucking sucks. Guys, I don't know. This production of Joseph and an Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat fucking sucks.
Let me tell you.
No, I'm playing guitar great. I just think I think you guys are the problem.
Let me tell you a little secret about being a professional performer. If a show sucks, they all know it. I promise you. Or at least most of them do.
I remember in my Beach High School Theater 1 production of Rememberin' Stuff, we also were kind of aware that the show sucked.
There's that one kid who's like probably going to go on to be an actor or actress, and you're like, they're good.
Marie Lewis,
the rest of us are terrible, but hey, it gets me out of choir practice after school or something. Frank Oz directed this. Which famously, but yes. I don't think I ever put that together. But
he's famous for many things, but he also directed this.
Yes.
He's our Yoda. He's our Miss Piggy. To a lesser extent, our Grover. He's great. He also has a cameo in the alternate ending, which I've never caught before until rewatching it.
What was he in the alternate ending?
He's just a bystander who is like standing on a street corner, and then all of a sudden vines wrap around him and he gets pulled off frame. And I was like, I think that's Frank Oz.
We saw him in a cameo in Blues Brothers. The 80s were really big for Frank Oz. He had Muppets Take Manhattan. He directed this. He started, obviously, he was Yoda, and he did a bunch of Muppet voices as well. Like, he had a big decade.
Yeah, he was doing cocaine off of Rolf's ear. He didn't even voice Rolf, guys. I don't even know why I said that. I'd like to apologize to the good people at Muppets Inc., a subsidiary of Disney Corp.
Be careful. Why do you think Steve Martin got the special appearance by tag? I thought
that was weird too. I don't know what the rule, why these people got special appearance buys.
This was a big year for him too. The same year as Three Amigos, which we just watched.
I was confused because in the trailer, I rewatched the trailers, and the narrator of the trailer, that's how old the trailers are, they still had narrators, not Don LaFontaine, but some other voice I kind of recognized. And they also specifically said, with special appearances by, and listed Steve Martin, Bill Murray, James Belushi, yada, yada, yada. I don't know. I feel like there's legal rules on special appearance buys, because even... I remember as a kid, I'm like, it's a movie. It's not it's not an episode of Cheers. Like, this is the movie. Yeah. He's in it. It's not like, usually when I watch Little Shop of Horrors, Steve Martin's not in it, but every third time I put the videotape in, this is the version with Steve Martin in it.
I know there's some like contractual, like there's some union rules, and maybe his agent or he negotiated that or whatever. Bill Murray famously doesn't have an agent, so he didn't get the special appearance by title though. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm always curious about it, but not enough to ask enough questions to get an answer, because I don't really care.
If we could get an entertainment attorney in here, that'd be great.
We get the Greek chorus. What are the singers called? They have a name?
They have names. They do have names. One's named Chiffon. I remember that, but I can't remember all their names. There is an odd Martin connection, as in the Fox sitcom Martin, in that both Tisha Arnold I've mixed it up again. Tisha Campbell and Tashina Arnold are both in Martin, and they're both in the chorus to Little Shop of Horrors. And when I was a kid and realized that, for some reason I was blown away, because I had a lot of the first 15 minutes of Martin on videotape because it came on right after The Simpsons. And that was usually, we got home from like Bible study and I had to like stop the tape so I could watch my episode of The Simpsons.
I definitely watched.
I had a lot of friends.
Obviously. I was a regular watcher of Martin for reasons, because it was a good show and it was on. Or at least I thought it was good at the time. We'll have to revisit that at some point. And I remember seeing this after.
And other characters.
I remember seeing this after Martin and being like, Tisha Campbell. And which I know from the credits. I wouldn't have recognized the other lady probably because
I like the way they're used. I think her name is Michelle Weeks, is the third one in the. I like the way they use the chorus because they are all somewhat ethereal, but they're also real people who live in the neighborhood. Yeah. Skid Row is the neighborhood, in that you'll see them and they'll just be in street clothes, and then they'll walk off screen, come back on screen, and then they're in like full on Mary, Flo, and Diana like doo-wop outfits, ready to sing a song. I'm always charmed when they're on screen, and sometimes it's creepy the way they're used on screen. Yeah. In one of the later songs in Supper Time, when Rick Moranis sort of lures Mr. Mushnick into Audrey 2, you don't really fully see them. They're like in an alley, like through the window, and they just sort of, they're wearing these purple sequin dresses, and you see the sequins before you see them, which is kind of eerie. And then they're behind like a window shade, so you see their silhouette, and you can still sort of see the sequins reflecting through the window shade. It's very effective. And they all do a lot with not that much. I mean, aside from the singing, they don't have many lines. Yeah. But they're very effective.
That's a creepy song too, because they're just kind of whisper singing supper time, and they're like doing like come hither motions. And I think they do also a great job of just setting up that this is a legit musical. We're not doing like comedians singing so much as these people can fucking wail like immediately.
And it also sets up this idea that it's not. What I like is that it's a very artificial looking, I mean that in a good way, it's a very artificial looking movie. Yeah. It's meant to sort of be fantastical, and them being present from the get-go. Like, they're the first people you see in this movie singing the title song. And then you see this like set that is very much a set. It's a really nice set, but it is still very much clearly they didn't go out to Queens to film this. They've built this really nice set. Like, imagine if Sesame Street had more meth on it. Like it has that vibe.
I often do.
I like that it didn't hide it wasn't ashamed of its like musical roots. Because I was trying to think, because the 80s, I think, were an awkward time for movie musicals. I feel like the 80s and 90s were like this sort of desert of movie musicals. Broadway was having a field day with Phantom of the Opera and Cats, and also Little Shop of Horrors and a lot of other things. But in movies, I think the 70s moved towards like realism and verisimilitude. It sort of killed the movie musical. And you didn't see many. You might see one or two like throughout the decade, but rarely big hits. And I think that's interesting that this is one of the few that like popped its head up and actually was successful. Because I couldn't think of any other 80s movie musicals while I was watching this.
Well, it did kind of underperform what they were expecting, but it did catch on a lot, I guess, in VHS and like later broadcasts and stuff like that. So it was kind of thing that it wasn't like cult hit status. Like I think it made its money back, but it wasn't like this massive hit, or it wasn't had as big of a cultural impact as it ended up having later.
Right. Okay.
I don't know why. Got some hits in here
because people didn't want to see musicals.
Yeah, Ashman and Menken. You might know them from Little Mermaid and
Friends of the Pod.
Yeah.
Friends of the Pod.
What else did they write together?
They sort of got
all
like
Disney-esque things.
Sucked into the Disney realm, much like Stuart Pankin.
Yes. Never to be seen again.
They started working on Beauty and the Beast, but Ashman died, I think,
during Aladdin, I think.
Into Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, was it?
So, yeah, I think. Or he may have started on Aladdin, I'm not sure, but he died early on in the 90s.
Some bops.
But again, like this is a really, sorry, I keep interrupting you.
I was just saying there's some bops. The songs are bops.
Do you want to rate songs? Do you want to go through the movie and rate them as we go?
Yeah, let's go through it. Okay, so we got the Little Shop theme. I did write down all the songs because I wanted to remember it, and I'm sure I won't remember them all exactly. But.
Oh, wait, before we get into this, I want to point out, I had a memory that I wish I had brought up during the introduction.
Okay.
Where, dear listener, if you are a younger millennial or, dear God, a Gen Zer, which if you're a Gen Zer, go make some friends. You don't need to be hanging out with older people like us.
You're like, hang out with your parents' friends right now. What are you doing? Get out of here.
I went on a quest as a older teen to get the Little Shop of Horrors soundtrack, which in the mid to late 90s was a Sisyphean ordeal of trying to like hunt it down, because I was calling to record stores in my area to see if they carried the Little Shop of Horrors soundtrack. And the only one that did was Tower Records, which was like right smack dab in the middle of downtown Nashville. And I got Phyllis Anthopoulos, Living Saint Among Us, to drive me down to downtown Nashville from Goodlettsville suburbs. She drove me down so I could walk in for 30 seconds, ask the clerk, do you have the Little Shop of Horrors soundtrack? The surly teen, who was probably like just slightly older than me, but felt like 20 years older than me, showed me the thing. I bought it and I brought it home, and I was so excited. And I listened to the Little Shop of Horrors soundtrack all the time. By the way, this is 10 years after the movie came out. So I like had a quest to find this soundtrack.
But before you came. No, I'm just kidding. Just a little local color here. I like that she drove for 15 minutes to get to downtown. No, I get it.
If I had a kid, I'd be like, go fuck yourself.
I'm from the suburbs. I get it. It would be like, to the city? To Tower Records? It's so big. We have a perfectly good CD store here.
No, we do not, Mom. Media Play doesn't count.
Called Media Play. They have 20 CDs for $10. We got the Little Shop theme. Little Shop of Horrors. We got Skid Row. Down on Skid Row. The song is called Dadu, which is basically just the background singers doing a little doo-wop stuff, and then Seymour telling the story of how he bought, which was actually, it was really great. The whole sequence was really great, but the song is not really a song.
It's also, is it one take, that sequence?
It's
where he tells the story?
Filmed as if it is, and it's like...
Okay. Oh, right, because it does pan to the eclipse and stuff.
But it's a kind of a play within a play. He's like reenacting what he already did.
Like Hamlet, yeah.
It's very good. It's much like Hamlet. I mean, it's got the Greek chorus. Isn't that in Hamlet?
No.
Nah, shit.
No.
Shit.
There's a ghost in it. Is there a ghost in this? We're going to get a Venn diagram going.
I don't know. Grow for me. So that's when Seymour's singing about, kind of weird. I don't remember how.
He's pleading with the plant to actually grow, because the plant is sickly and he needs it to grow now that it seemed to brought in business.
Somewhere that
it has a lot of sweet gardening lyrics in there.
Yeah.
If you garden or have had a lot of plants die on you, you will recognize a lot of these instructions.
Much like we've commended them for their lyrics in the Disney movies too. Like the lyrics are all like the music, the lyrics, it's all really, really well. It's very tightly composed, really cleverly worded. It's great. Somewhere That's Green, which is Audrey 1's I Wish song.
Yeah.
She wants to grow old and live with Fat and Rick Moranis. It's great. They see their future together. And then Some Fun Now, which is the chorus sings about, and we having some fun now because the plant wants to eat more and more and more.
Yeah, it's like a montage of like watching the plant grow and Seymour having defeated his finger blood.
He starts to get a little anemic because he's losing blood.
He does at one point, and I had never caught this, but he says, I've been a little lightheaded recently. And I'm like, oh, right, because he doesn't have any blood in his system.
I think at least one of my favorites, if not my favorite, which is Dentist by Steve Martin.
Oh, yeah.
I did have to rewind the whole sequence. We'll get to that in a second. But Feed Me by The Plant, when we learn that it can talk.
I felt like that I remember being a thing for some reason. Maybe it was just a thing in my house. I know my dad would sing Feed Me Seymour, Feed Me All Night Long.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that. He would sing the song and reference it a lot.
Definitely a thing.
It's even in Scrooged. Bill Murray sings Feed Me Seymour, Feed Me at the end of Scrooged, which is an odd pairing. Yeah, he does. When he's at that part where he's singing to the audience, like during the last part where it just feels like everyone's drunk and having a good time with movie cameras, he says, Feed me, Seymour, feed me.
Oh.
I said it's an odd pairing.
That phrase, at least, if not the song, and Suddenly Seymour, which is the next one, that's like a breakout song for this. And then Supper Time, which we talked about. And then it's called The Meek Shall Inherit, which is that's the song of when he becomes even more famous because he's starting to feed bodies. Go on.
As a soundtrack owner, I can tell you that this is probably the most edited song. There is a whole part of this where Rick Moranis has like a crisis of faith where he sings, he wants to get rid of the plant. Yeah. And he's like, but if I get rid of the plant, I'll lose her. Right. I think it was edited out of the full movie, but it was a pretty good song on the soundtrack. Yeah. Same thing with Some Fun Now. There was a lot edited out, but it's just the same vibe over and over again. Yeah. But this one had like a emotional beat that was cut out.
And then probably in my top, if not tied for my favorite, is Mean Green Mother from Outer Space.
Absolutely my favorite. Number one, With a Rocket. Do people say that?
Yeah.
With a Rocket, my number one. You know I love a villain song, as we already talked about during...
Which Dentist is too.
Little Mermaid. Yeah, that's true. They're both great songs, but Mean Green Mother from Outer Space, it's a rare villain song in that it comes as the last song in the thing, which is fitting if you consider the directorial version rather than the theatrical version, but absolutely my favorite. Also edited, has a fun bridge that got cut out, but it's a great song. I fucking love it. It's on my running mix. It comes on my running mix, and I think I rarely skip it. It's just a lot of fun to listen to.
It's good. I mean... Let's go ahead and start talking about the cast, because Levi Stubbs, just like everyone in this movie, anybody that's featured for any length of time is like 10 out of 10. Levi Stubbs is like just absolutely, it's so good. The voice work, the singing.
And the puppetry. I mean, the puppetry I feel like is melded really well with the attitude he brings to Audrey 2. I mean, I did watch this. I have been watching this movie every so often for 30 years now. It's fine to say it. And I am still, when I watch the Audrey 2 segments, I'm like, but how did they do it though? I was watching it and I was like, did they film it in slow motion and speed it up?
Yes.
Is that what they did?
Yeah.
Because I was watching, I would go to Rick Moranis, who's in the shot with the plant, and it doesn't feel like there's any, he just, I guess, did a really good job of moving slowly so it didn't seem...
Yeah,
weird.
They slowed it down and then did these crazy things where they had the like super slowed down but pitched up so you could understand what was being said to him. And then he had to say his lines or sing his lines slowly so that when they sped it back up, it didn't look weird. Just wild. I mean, but yeah, the puppetry.
But it looks great.
It looks so good. And the natural, for a big giant plant, but like it looks.
The natural speaking plant. Go on.
So you've got the mouth, which is clearly like kind of a puppet in the sense that it's like there's somebody operating it in there, but it's not like a sock puppet. It's like it looks, you know what I mean? Like it's not like a miniature that they're zooming in on. I saw
the movie too.
And then they've got the like vines. He's using his vines like all the time, and they don't look.
But it's not just like a hand. Right. It's not operating like Miss Piggy because there's a whole lip thing. There's a tongue that's in there as well. Like the lips have like they curl and pucker and all the things you'd expect lips to do. Like it's kind of amazing. I wrote to you that I had said aloud, like, this is better than Marvel special effects, and then instantly aged 15 years in my couch. But it really is amazing to see practical effects that are this seamless.
My favorite part of the plant is when it opens its mouth and you look inside, because it's a mouth and it's very clearly like it has like a tongue thing, but the tongue is like a leaf and it's got like, it's all very leafy and very plant-like inside. And I mean, just the details are there It's incredible.
The details are fantastic. I do want to point out, and this is something I caught not this time watching, but a few times ago watching. But as Audrey drinks more blood, its mouth becomes more mouth-like and less plant-like. So there's a scene where Rick Moranis goes to WSKID, Skid Row Radio. And
John Candy is the DJ.
John Candy is Wink Wilkerson. Hard name to say. But he takes Audrey 2 with him, and Audrey 2, while Rick Moranis is distracted by Nun Puppet, tries to bite the butt of the producer who's running the show. And it opens its mouth. Audrey opens their mouth, and it's purple inside and has like this yellow plant-like tongue. And then when it is really big and sings Feed Me, it has a big purple mouth still, but a pink tongue, I feel like. And then when it's giant in the last sequence, it still has a purple mouth, and it's getting more and more like features, I feel like. But then when it tries to eat Audrey, its mouth turns pink. From then on, its mouth is pink on the inside, no longer purple. It is more and more animal-like as the movie goes on. I always feel like it's a weird element of the plant that it's quite an amazing creation. Like, I can't get over that this is a 30-year-old movie and this plant looks so fucking amazing. And if you try to do a CGI Audrey, I would kill you and myself and bury us in the same tomb. Like, I'd be so mad. Like, don't bother.
I guess the only thing, if I were gonna point out something, is like when it's the very first thing it does, where it moves, is so Seymour cuts himself on a thorn and then is like sucking blood off, and it just starts going, and it's like a little plant, and that is very puppet-like, but it's also just more surreal and off-putting, which is the whole point. I think it served its purpose, even if you could be like, that looks more puppety than it does later. It's not really even a criticism, because I'm like, it kind of tracks. While we're talking about special effects, we have to talk about, during one of my favorite songs, Dentist, there's this incredible shot. So it's basically just Steve Martin's character, Oren. What is his?
Oren Scrivello, DDS.
Yes. He's the evil dentist boyfriend of Audrey 1. And there's this whole sequence. The song is incredible. He's this badass dentist, leather
like very
jacket.
Styled on Elvis.
Yes. He rides in on a motorcycle and just looks at it to make it stop, which I really like that moment. But there's this one scene, while we're talking about visual effects, where he's working on a patient and we see from inside the mouth. And so it's this giant mouth and a tongue and like these big craggly teeth. Steve Martin and the nurses are like singing behind.
The chorus are dressed
the chorus.
as
That's what it is. Yeah.
Him, yeah.
And oh my God, it's so great. I had to watch that whole.
It's amazing. It's again amazing.
I had to watch that whole song twice, which I remember I did last year when I watched this too. I had to rewind it because the whole thing cracked me up so much. And
don't forget, the mouth is also singing background.
Yes.
But background in a way where it sounds like a mouth with something in it.
I
am a dentist. Yeah. I even wrote, one of my notes is the mouth, all caps with an exclamation point.
And the end of that sequence, he's saying, and he's like squirting the water into the mouth. I don't know why that cracked me up so much, but it's just, it's so good. It's so good.
I didn't catch it when I was younger, of course, but I mean, he's obviously styled after Elvis. He has a Southern accent, or at least Steve Martin plays him with a Southern accent. Yeah. He also has a shrine to his mama in his dental office. It feels like some Ed Gein nonsense because he goes in and it's like strung up with brightly colored Christmas lights. She seems too old to possibly be his mother. I mean, she looks like she would be born in the 1900s, which means she would be already 60 when she would have given birth to him. But it's so freaky. Steve Martin really plays this character very well. He's a complete asshole. He's very funny, though. One of the things I feel like this movie may get away with in a way that I'm kind of in awe of is that he is an abusive monster, and it gets away with a lot of jokes about domestic abuse that do not feel offensive, but do feel like they turn you against him, but are still like legitimately funny jokes. At one point, Audrey 1 comes into the flower shop. She has her arm in a sling, but it's a sexy sling. It's like a lace. Chiffon, black lace sling that she's made herself. He insists that she call him Doctor. And say his full name, Oren Scavello, DDS. It's really fucked up. Steve Martin's obviously having a great time with this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know if we need a problematic corner for that, but yeah, if you are a victim of domestic abuse, I could see you being like, I don't find this that funny. But it's also like this, he is arch villain. You know what I mean? There is no the whole point is you don't care when he's chopped up and fed to the plant. Like it's very dark. Sweeney Todd.
I mean, he
level.
is made.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a slasher movie in that he is made to be so bad so that you do not care when Jason Voorhees chops his head off in the middle of trying to lure a girl into the shower. Yeah. Like that's his entire purpose. Mushnick, though, and I feel like I'm not. This is not a criticism of the movie, but we see Oren die. That's the first victim of the plant, and that is a technicality. Rick Moranis, convinced by the plant to go kill his crush's, abusive boyfriend, he goes to kill him.
He sees him beating her through the window across. She lives across the street, apparently,
from the flower shop. But so Rick Moranis goes to the dental office, and by coincidence, Steve Martin overdoses on nitrous oxide, on laughing gas, because he has a whole machine set up.
Insane mask. I don't know if that's a thing that people have. But it's crazy.
It's so insane.
It's got like the two little inflatable
balloons that inflate. It's got a whole jet pack apparatus on the back. It's completely insane. I mean, I don't want to talk about Steve Martin this entire time, but it is such a great really performance. Yeah. So Rick Moranis does not kill Steve Martin. Yeah. And I feel like it's the movie kind of giving him an out. But then later, Mr. Mushnick witnesses Seymour chopping up Steve Martin's character. He tries to blackmail Seymour into giving him all the gardening tips for Audrey 2, who's now like big and famous, and will buy him a ticket out of town and he'll never come back. And then Rick Moranis sees Audrey 2 like opening their mouth, and he sort of just inches himself closer.
He doesn't technically push him in, but it's like he's definitely.
But he doesn't not.
He doesn't, yeah.
The movie tries to convince us, and I feel like the movie purposefully leaves it nebulous. It tells us that Mushnick's not a great guy.
Right.
But we see him like not being a terrible guy. He's kind of a gruff guy, but he's not a terrible guy. He shows concern about Audrey 1. He tells her a good date should get you a corsage, not a double fracture. You don't need a date, you need major medical. Like, he's very concerned about Audrey 1. And, he kind of Seymour is gruff towards...
he took him in.
Yeah, he took Seymour in. He's not maybe the best parent, but we don't see him being absolutely terrible to him. So it's a little sad when Mushnick dies.
Yeah. It's definitely immediately, because they set the dentist up. They set Dr. Oren Scrivener, DDS. I do it right?
Scrivello, I believe is what it is.
Sorry.
I mean, I think it's deliberately made to be as awkward as possible. Scrivello.
They set that up so much that you're like, you see the sort of very quick, slippery slope of then Mushnick is like, well, I had to because he's blackmailing me. It was like, yeah, he's not evil, pure evil like Scrivello was, but he's not good, so it's it's okay. You can see it complicated, which is very cool and intentional.
And plus, Seymour is just like a sweetie pie, so you automatically side with him. I mean, Rick Moranis. I mean, we're sort of glossing over Rick Moranis and Ellen Green in this.
Let's talk about Rick Moranis.
They also are fantastic.
Let's talk about Rick Moranis. I think I overlooked him always because it's like, it's the guy from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or the guy from SCTV or whatever, but he not only does his Rick Moranis thing, which is great, being the sort of like the nerdy put upon. He's a really good. It's very exaggerated in this because he's like, oh, she'll never love me, But he gets to sing.
He does get to sing. He holds his own.
He does, especially as it goes along. Like he gets more confident, and his singing gets more confident. He gets more to do. He gets more like the high notes and the singing. Like by the end, I can't remember which song it is. Suddenly Seymour is probably one that I'm thinking of. He
does get a big note in Suddenly Seymour.
Yeah, he's singing. He sounds great. And I know he's an actual singer. He did a country album, which is
several
confusing, but but good. He's a good singer. He was incredible. And I think that it's easy to overlook, which I also did for Ellen Green as a kid watching this. I saw the superficial of like the boobs and the voice, right? Of like, she's the sort of damsel and the whatever, but it's a pretty complicated character. She's actually really talented and smart, like the character, but also she is incredible. The voice is incredible. Like the acting, the comedic timing, the singing, it's all just like Ellen Green is...
And she's doing it through a speech impediment as well.
Yes.
She sort of swallows her R's a little bit.
Yeah.
And also doing a New York accent as well as the speech impediment.
Right.
Sure. Ellen Green is, I mean, I feel like because also this is probably her biggest role, at least movie-wise. I think she's a Broadway person.
She originated the role, I guess, on the off-Broadway show.
Yes. She's fantastic in this.
So good.
I feel like I was thinking about this while I was watching, like, is this falling into the nice guy trap? And I think it's not teetering on the edge, but I think what keeps it from falling completely into the nice guy trope is that she, while beautiful, is also kind of flawed and doesn't see herself as worthy of the things that she truly wants. And so I feel like that keeps it from stuff like 10 Things I Hate About You, where Joseph Gordon-Levitt is just grumpy that girls aren't falling for him because he's just holding doors for them left and right, is just a really, I mean, I think it rescued the movie from falling into that trope.
Yeah.
Now, he does kill people for her, and that's problematic. But I feel like the fact that they have their own individual flaws, keeps it above water for me.
When I like that we see that she's not just this like bombshell, she's making the incredible arrangements that have kept this shop afloat, such as it was, even though it's struggling. Like when they get the funeral or whatever, when they start getting business and
Mrs. Shiva, the whole body, it's enormous and it's dropping like flies.
And she's like, give me the tulips, whatever. And she like makes an arrangement.
The
lilies, that's what it is.
She's throwing glitter on them.
It's very good.
I do like, I mean, I feel like, and this might be Howard Ashman, I feel like this is sort of a queer take on a character, a very specifically queer take, in that she is very sweet. It treads this line perfectly of like seemingly making fun of her while also thinking she's amazing.
Right.
Her song, Somewhere That's Green, which is every time I rehear it, I'm like, this is a great song.
It is.
Because
it's ridiculous.
It's kind of making fun of her for having such low goals for her. Her dreams are moving to the suburbs, having a tiny home,
with plastic
and watching
on the
I Love Lucy on a 12-inch screen. Like, that's all she wants. Being with this nebbishy guy and having 2 kids, and they're playing How Do You Do while the sun sets.
Yeah.
But isn't that kind of nice?
Isn't that nice?
That does sound really nice.
Yeah.
It's kind of an amazing performance and an amazing character. It really does work for me. I want to talk more about her when we get to the alternate ending.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that? I
want to say that more towards the end, because I want to talk about the first ending first, and then we can talk about the alternate ending. But yeah, who else do we have in here? Vincent Gardenia, I think, does a great job
as Mushnik.
I only know him from Moonstruck, Death Wish, and this.
Yeah.
But yeah, he plays Mr. Mushnik. He's great.
Yeah, I mean, those are the main. It's a very small cast, which is, I think, I was reading some of the like part of the reason that it's very appealing to community theaters and like high school productions is it's got a very small cast.
You don't need a lot of them.
Yeah. Oh, I know who we have to talk to.
I know who you're about to. It popped into my head too. Yeah. Go ahead, say his name.
His name is Christopher Guest. You might know him. You probably know him from SNL very briefly, and that's it. No,
You probably know him from those awkward years on SNL when they brought in a bunch of established comedians, and it was kind of odd.
Weird. Christopher Guest is in this. He plays the first new customer after they
put Audrey 2 in the window, and it lures in a customer.
The character he plays is absolutely deranged. The voice he gives him.
What a strange and interesting plan. He also seems mic'd and unlike everyone else in the scene. Like he's like
40s broadcaster.
Reverberating through the room. Yeah. He has that Phil Hartman quality where he just has like like he's announcing a sports game. Like, who are you projecting towards?
He's like, can you break a 50? And they're like, oh, sorry, we can't. They think they're going to lose his business. And he goes, well, I guess I'll just have to buy twice as many then, won't I?
He's enunciating. He's projecting. It's ridiculous.
It's my favorite thing. He's my nominee for the Sally Fields Memorial Single Scene Award.
Seconded.
She's alive. We know she's alive. People don't get our joke. It's a joke.
He also not only is doing this weird voice, he's doing something with his physicality where he's like moving almost like Batman, where he has to like move his entire torso rather than his head. Yeah. It's almost like his head moves and then his eyes follow where his head went. So it gives you this jarring element of like theatricality.
This is a little hard to tell, and it doesn't really matter, and I don't think we know exactly the answer. But the plant is making this stuff happen, not just in terms of being an appealing thing in the window, but like the plant is actually making this happen because he's like, I've given you all these things. I've given you everything you want. We don't know how the plant is making it happen.
Wait, so you're viewing it as like the plant has some sort of extraneous power that we're not privy to?
I think it's possible. It would also help explain, not that we need it explained, but the sort of even more exaggerated way that Christopher Guest is acting is he's coming in and he's like brainwashed. Like, well then. And of course it's just funny. And it doesn't, again, this doesn't matter, but I did have that little pet theory today where I was like, it's possible that's, the plant has these sort of like psychic powers and is like making all this happen, which is why they're like, Seymour, sign here, sign here, sign here. It is like already kind of played silly by our, just in general. So it's kind of hard to tell because it's like, is this is how it happens when you become successful all of a sudden? Or is it kind of like exaggerated by the plant's powers? I don't know.
I always just read it as the plan is so interesting that it's drawing people in, but it needs someone who can keep it alive during this initial stage.
Yeah.
It can use its power to be interesting, but it's not doing any like mind control. It's just interesting in and of itself.
Isn't it?
But maybe so. Maybe so. Maybe that's why everyone's so, because as we see in the epilogue of the original ending, everyone's crazed for these fucking things.
Yeah.
During a shopping spree. Who else we got before we go to the endings?
Bill Murray.
Plural.
We didn't talk about him. I know he's been outed as a raging asshole and a creep. I don't think he's not in this enough to warrant his own problematic corner today.
Well, I mean, actually, I would like to stay. Maybe just let's open the door to the problematic corner a crack.
Let's get in there.
Ooh, watch out now, y'all. Damon's got a problem, baby. Ooh, watch out now, y'all. Let him know about it.
I don't think it's truly problematic, but it is like queer coded, this interaction between him and Steve Martin.
Can you play the theme song quietly for a second?
Not too loud, because I don't think it's necessarily problematic.
Okay,
I think Howard Ashman knows exactly what he's doing. He plays Arthur Denton, who is a masochist he mentions that he goes to dentists 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
He starts listing the various dentists he goes to every other day. One of which is a blind old woman who has to use the sound of your voice to find where your teeth are. It's a pretty funny performance. But once Steve Martin starts going into his mouth, we get a lot of moaning, and we even get a shot where we're looking down at Bill Murray on the dental chair, and Steve Martin is over him, and Bill Murray is sort of grasping at Steve Martin's shoulder in a very sexual manner. It's very charming. I thought it was funny to beat the band, but maybe someone finds it problematic. I don't fucking know.
Ooh, watch out now, y'all. Damon's got a problem, baby. Ooh, watch out now, y'all. Let him know about it.
And also, I didn't want to bring this up, but Google, in its algorithmic knowledge, served an article to me last night, and it was an excerpt from Miriam Margolyes's biography where she said that Steve Martin was terrible to work with in this scene.
Really?
Because she kept actually getting punched and actually getting hit by the door.
Oh, no.
Over and over and over again while filming her scenes. She plays his dental hygienist or his receptionist.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, I think, breathlessly during the intro.
You've sent me now, I think, 5 different interview clips of her not knowing who other celebrities are or calling their work terrible, mostly. She seems very charming.
She's a wonderful woman.
She seems very charming.
I would recommend, I won't go off on her, but she is one of my favorite people.
Don't say go off on her.
She's one of my favorite people to send clips of to various friend groups. DJ, you're welcome. You are now going to be in that friend group as well.
Delightful.
If you want to look her up, it's Miriam Margolyes, but it's not spelled like Juliana Margolyes. It's spelled like Margoyles. Like gargoyles, but Margoyles.
I remember that cartoon. Short-lived Disney.
Oh, yeah. People loved that. It was so dark. I highly recommend her. She has no filter. If she didn't like the movie of the guest she was on Graham Norton with, she's like, oh, I thought it was a dreadful film.
Yeah. She says,
which made me laugh to beat the band. I'll tell you that.
She's worth mentioning because she's in this and seems charming, but she doesn't have much to do in this. But
she's only mentioned because she is more famous now than she is at the time she's in this movie.
It's too bad because I love Steve Martin's performances. The Bill Murray thing, I think it just makes me really uncomfortable, but it could just be the sort of
I think that's its design,
It doesn't make me go like, oh, this is homophobic. It makes me go like, why is this here? This is weird. And I think the true answer is that because it was in the original and it's like an homage to the original
Jack Nicholson's character.
Because it was cut. I guess it was excised from the musical until they put it back in.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. It is, I feel like it does, and I already alluded to this, but I feel like it does deepen my personal hatred towards Steve Martin's character in that he really wants someone who doesn't want the pain. Like he does not want a willing participant.
Yeah, he doesn't like
he
find
wants
his
someone
perfect
who
match.
Doesn't want it.
Yeah. That's fair.
And we see that with Audrey 1. She seems very like shy about the fact that he asks her if she has the handcuffs and she's like, they're in my bag. She feels very like demure, and it feels like she doesn't want to do this stuff, but this is part of what he wants to do. And she sort of goes along with whatever happens.
So in the ending, the theatrical ending, what you would see if you just look it up, Audrey...
If you just look it up, watch it. If you just watch it.
Sometimes I just say things. I don't know whether. Audrey 2 starts gnawing on Audrey 1, but Seymour helps save her. She recovers. She's okay. They live happily ever after. They kill the plant. But the big twist is that there's a baby plant in their yard. Just kind of like the end ? Right. But there's this crazy original ending, which is, I guess, the way that I don't know how the Roger Corman film ends, but it's the way the musical ended, which is a very dark. Is it the same way? Okay.
Both sort of end more in this vein than the original. The theatrical ending is the outlier.
Yeah.
Roger Corman and the play end both with Audrey and Seymour.
They had every intention of honoring that original ending. They filmed it, and they basically the plant kills Audrey 1 and then gets massively sized, kills Seymour as well, eats him, and then grows to Godzilla size, and there's multiple plants, and they take over in this very lengthy sequence. They destroy it. Like I got really
this kind of kaiju sequence.
Yeah, I got kind of like, this should be like half as long. I got kind of bored where I'm like, they're not doing anything new. There was no like funny beats or anything. It was just like more destruction, and you're kind of like, yeah, I get it. But that's where they spent like half of their budget. It seems like these plants, this enormous plants, just like terrorizing. They take over the world. And that's the end. And apparently it was like, we can't release this movie. That's how bad the audience rated this ending. They were just like,
really?
Yeah. And they were apparently, there's something about, this is just one guy talking. I can't remember who said it, but there was like a theater critic who was like, if you go see a show and it has a dark ending, that the actors come back out and bow. They're like, we know there's this sort of suspension of disbelief, which you know when you're watching a film, but that's it. Those characters are gone. You don't get more of them. And I guess they're just like, people were just, I hate this. Like, I hate this ending. Where the powers that be were just like, we cannot go forward with this. And so they reshot the whole thing. That's why James Belushi is in the theatrical ending. It's because the original guy they had couldn't come back for the reshoots. So they cut him.
The original guy who plays his character he's a character actor that you would recognize. Oh, Paul Dooley. He's in a lot of 80s, 90s films. A lot of Christopher Guest films, actually. Yeah, I was actually going to reference the same thing because I remember having the same revelation. Maybe I just stumbled upon the same article or theater critic that you did, which is the element of artifice in theater.
Yeah.
You're in a room watching people in a room pretend to be someone. There's sort of like a contract that you're like, yeah. We're all pretending and I'm going along with it. I got it. But in movies, there is, even in a fantastical movie like this, there's like an assumption of like, just buy into this is real.
Right.
And that's why if special effects are bad, you're like, I don't like this movie. This movie isn't as good as it could be. And yeah, I think the element of like, even in the original stage play and Roger Corman's film, actually, you see Seymour and Audrey in buds for Audrey 2. They sort of, their faces pop out and they participate in the last song and in Roger Corman's film, The Last Shot. So there is this element of like saying goodbye to these characters. And then of course, in any other play, they come out for the curtain call and they wave and say, Don't worry. I know
here.
I played Julius Caesar and I got stabbed, but see,
I'm okay.
no stab wounds. Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen that same article and it really opened my eyes to like the difference between theater, because it's not like people didn't know going into Little Shop of Horrors. Like, it was a popular show.
Right.
Like, people were seeing it. That's why they made a fucking movie about it. People knew what they were getting into, and the idea that they had changed it, I think it's easy to like write off focus groups, but it is interesting. I think it opens my mind to like the difference between watching a movie and watching a stage play.
I think there's also like a tradition in I don't have like a lot of evidence for this, but I feel like there's a tradition in musical theater to have like sort of super dark endings. I don't know, it feels right. And maybe I'm just thinking of like specific things like this and Into the Woods and whatever. Like maybe it's not. Maybe like if you did a percentage, it would actually be the same of happy versus sad ending, but it like, no, movies, we do happy endings. And this is, like a happy ending.
Yeah.
That feels like a fun twist. But there's like, oh, they're going to, here we go again. Or like, I don't know, just don't feed it blood.
With seeing the little Audrey 2 in their garden bed in the suburbs at the end. I am a little torn. I don't know. I mean, I grew up with the original ending from the movie. I didn't even know there was an alternate ending because I had never seen the stage play until I started reading IMDb trivia, like any lonely tween. So I only heard rumors of it. And also, like, it was sort of almost a myth because David Geffen and Frank Oz didn't want to release the footage because they were debating whether they wanted to re-release it in theaters with the original ending. And I think I saw clips of it online in a very unfinished state. The sound was going in and out, like the background, like music was going in and out. Sometimes the shots weren't fully in color yet. They were just dailies. They weren't even finished in that regard. My Blu-ray has like the completed ending, but even then it doesn't feel as polished as it should be. That being said, there's a lot more panache, I think, in the original ending than there is in the theatrical ending. It feels very
tighter,
much
too.
It feels a little tighter. It feels a little bit like there is part of me that thinks Seymour gets off a little easy in the theatrical ending. Like, you didn't kill two people and brought this murderous plant into a very powerful state, even though you did electrocute it by the end. It seems weird that he sort of, I get to move to the suburbs now.
Yeah.
And Ellen Green also gets a fantastic reprise of Somewhere That's Green, which is like a perfect musical theater moment in that it is beautiful, it's touching, and it's ridiculous on its face. Like, it's absolutely silly what she's doing because, of course, the original song is about her moving to the suburbs, getting out of the city, and this is about her sacrificing herself into a literal plant, into a literal Somewhere That's Green. It's so ridiculous. But sort of going back to the theater comment, it is a little kind of, I think, awkward in that almost all the characters we have grown acquainted with over the course of the movie are now dead after Seymour dies. And the entire epilogue is with nameless characters we've never seen before. And a chorus, not even the three chorus girls that we've been seeing, but like an unseen chorus singing about Don't Feed the Plants is the outro song. While there are some sort of funny, like Wile E. Coyote, Rampage the video game moments with the plant monsters, I do agree with you that it's maybe a minute or two too long. Although it is funny to see them like pulling these old people out of their beds. There's some scenes of them blowing into smokestacks and blowing out factories, like by blowing the smoke back in, and them eating like an L train as it's riding along the top of the city. It does sort of drag after a while.
You need like two or three.
And it is awkward
bits
to not have any character as your like sort of anchor in this moment that you've grown accustomed to. Going back to that theater comment of like, where's Seymour and Audrey to wave goodbye as they
there's no
die.
The stakes are already, it's gotten as bad as it's going to get. And you just like are kind of like, okay, it's like, it's already dead. Like that's the thing,
But it is, I mean, I think if it was tightened up, I think it would be a lot better. I mean, that shot of when Seymour pulls himself out of the rubble and Audrey too wraps their vines around him and slowly pulls him up and then spits out his broken glasses. That's like, that's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Shot. That's a pretty great shot. But there is part of me that it also feels like Audrey too gets diminished to a little bit more of a trophy role in the original ending, in that she sacrifices herself for Seymour's fame and glory,
Audrey
which feels a little bit like Audrey 1 does, which feels a little, I feel like it diminishes her role, which I think had been really well established. It feels like of anyone, she should survive and Seymour should die. She didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Honestly, in the end, I think it's a minor complaint. I think I am torn between the two, but they're both great. I think the original has some finesse that the theatrical is missing.
It does seem a little unfair to compare them because it's like one is finished and the other one feels unfinished, and you never know what other additional editing they might have been able to do to it after the focus group if they had been like, okay, they didn't like it, but it's survivable. Let's tighten it up, boys. But otherwise, it's like, I like a happy ending, and so I don't know. It's hard to say.
Especially when the characters are so fucking charming.
Yeah.
You don't want to see Seymour standing on the edge of a building thinking about throwing himself to the ground. Jesus Christ.
Do you want to do a quote roundup?
Yeah.
She sings about, in Skid Row, Audrey 1 sings about eating all your lunches at the hot dog cart. And I would just want to say, Skid Row doesn't sound so bad.
There's a banter between Seymour and Audrey 1 at the beginning when he first introduces the plant to everyone. And Mr. Mushnick says, what do you call this thing? And he goes, I call it an Audrey 2. And Audrey goes, after me? And he goes, I hope you don't mind. And she goes, she makes a weird squeak.
Super high squeak.
It's great.
Yeah, that was actually my next quote as well. All of Christopher Guest's line. I want to rewatch it and memorize all of them, but well, I guess I'll just have to buy twice as many then, won't I?
I also love that they have no plants in the store. I don't know where they got the roses to give to him. There's only like dead stems in this store.
When the people come in and buy, this is what I'm talking about, brainwash. They come in and start buying them, and the plants are all like dried out and dead, which I thought was like, it doesn't seem like a production oversight because this movie is it doesn't seem like
pretty toy.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there would be that kind of mistake there, but they're like really ugly plants and flowers that they're all buying. And it's like, I think they're just deranged. It could just be they're deranged because they're so excited about the plant or whatever.
I just took it as, well, we want to show you how in dire straits this flower shop is, but also then in the end, they're gonna be able to sell flowers. Don't worry about it. I thought it was just like a conscious choice of like, just suspend your disbelief here because we want to really just sell you this idea that this flower shop is on its last legs.
All right. Either way, I liked it.
Or maybe it's mind control. I don't know.
I don't know either. Mushnick was talking to Audrey 1 and he says, let me guess, you got caught up, because he's like fed up with her dealing with this boyfriend. And she goes, no, just handcuffed a little.
I also have a Mushnick to Audrey saying, I'm telling you, Audrey, you don't need a date with him. You need major medical, which makes me laugh. I think I referenced it earlier, but I like it.
Because you think abuse is funny.
I think abuse is funny, and I think I'm concerned about the health insurance concerns of this country.
What's your deductible, Audrey 1? Speaking of thinking abuse is funny, which of course we don't. There's a line in one of the songs where she says, I know Seymour's the greatest, but I'm dating a semi-sadist. And I want to say not a semi-sadist, but syllabically a good choice.
Full sadist. Yeah. In the same vein, in the song Dentist, the chorus has a great line, which is, who wants their teeth done by the Marquis de Sade?
Very good.
The originator of the term sadism.
She also sings in Somewhere That's Green. Also, she does like her unhinged dancing in that. She just does these like, she's like dusting and
in the fantasy element where she's
so
just
good.
Floating her hands around the toaster because she daresn't touch it. And her dipping her finger in the chocolate frosting on the cake that just sits out on the table.
And then she sings, you mentioned it, on a big, enormous 12-inch screen. She sings.
Yeah.
So good.
I cook like Betty Crocker and I look like Donna Reed.
Yes.
That's the line I liked. And there's plastic on our furniture to keep it neat and clean in the pine sol scented air. Somewhere That's Green. It sounds terrible.
Yeah.
It sounds like an absolute nightmare to me. But it's so sweet that's all she wants. She doesn't want millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And she lives in an America where you could still buy a house on a florist's salary.
Who says, it must be Mushnick that says like, you love her madly, don't you, schmuck? Somebody says that.
Yes, he does say that. Also, right before they start singing for Suddenly Seymour, she's sort of mourning him, and Seymour is pulling it out of her that maybe she's kind of happy he's dead. And she says, I deserve a creep like Orin Scrivello, DDS. She still calls him DDS while sobbing about his death. When
Belushi comes later and they're about to do, is this the Suddenly Seymour reprise or something? He goes,
yes.
He comes up and goes like, if you two kids could stop singing for a moment. I just like that.
I mentioned Mrs. Shiva's family, this big, enormous family that's dropping like flies.
Yes, that's all I've got. The thing I did mention, but we talked about the little pods at the end when the plant is big. But during Mean Green Mother from Outer Space, the pods play a very big role because they're singing background vocals, and they're like, as he's being pulled in, they're oh, it's so good.
They also, I mean, I want to point out, I know I've gushed about the special effects over multiple minutes now, but they bloom, for lack of a better word, live on camera. Like they are little buds, and then they sort of open up. They sort of almost explode and unfold on camera. It's a practical effect. And while they unfold, they're like, as they open. They also, during the bridge of the song, Rick Moranis has been thrown through the checkout counter, and there's this hole where he's like been pushed through, and they are popping in from various angles in the counter and going, hoo, ha, ho. And it makes me laugh because it's just really well done.
It is.
They're really fantastic in that Audrey 2 has gotten so big that she not only takes up the entire like floral shop, but when she's on screen, she takes up most of the screen as well. So she's on screen, and then she's flanked by about 8 of these little blooms that are singing backup for her. I can't express to you how great this movie is. I feel like there's not like a missed step in this movie.
So, do you want to go to the verdict or what?
I think so.
Jesus. Professionalism. Oh, gone out of focus.
Oh, you gotta get back in there.
Damon, what's your verdict?
I think Your Inner Child is an idiot.
Oh.
I don't think that domestic violence is funny, and I certainly don't think that killing the entire human race via plant monster is very funny either.
Wow.
End the episode. We don't even need to hear.
Take that, M. Night Shyamalan.
No, of course. I mean, Your Inner Child is not an idiot. This is a fantastic movie. Special effects are great. The songs are great. The set pieces are great. What else can I express is great?
Performances.
Both endings I think are great. I think I'm leaning today towards the original ending, but catch me on a Thursday, I might say the theatrical ending is better. I don't know.
Your Inner Child's an idiot. This is so good. I kind of knew going into this just because I had watched it recently, but like when I rewatched it last year, I was not expecting to enjoy it this much. I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And
had you not seen it for a
I
while?
just hadn't seen it since I was a kid, which I was like more creeped out as a kid just because of the puppetry and the monster of it all. I don't think it scared me, but it was just more like, it's sucking on blood. I don't like that. That kind of thing.
Sure. Terrifying.
I would like to, we mentioned that single scene, Sally Field's single scene award goes to Christopher Guest. I would like to give the
Mr. Jamie Lee Curtis.
I would like to nominate for the Catherine O'Hara Memorial MVP award.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Ellen Green.
Oh yeah,
because I think maybe that's a duh for people who have seen this more recently, but it was unexpected to me. I guess I never appreciated how great she is until this moment.
She's fantastic.
To the level
she's
that
absolutely
she is.
great.
Yeah, great singing, great acting. She's funny. She gets like. Because I don't think she would be billed as the most comic relief in this movie because you've got Rick Moranis and you've got Steve Martin and you've got Bill Murray in there and you've got the plant, like all this stuff. Like, I don't know why I listed Bill Murray so high. He's only in it for one scene, but
you got James Belushi, of course. You got Miriam Margolyes.
And James Belushi, he's a Stitch. Everybody knows that. According to
You've
Jim.
got, of course, Paul Dooley in the original ending. So, I mean, you got an all-star cast.
But I think she's incredible in this. She's great. And the movie's great. I like it. And I don't know why I'm filling time. What do you think, everybody? Email us, yourinnerchild'sanidiot@gmail.com. You can text us or leave us a voicemail, 615-576-0525. Do you got the pay cheese?
I do have the pay cheese.
We want to thank our patrons for helping us make the show. Thank you so much to Just Cuz,
Lindsay Halik,
Scalfasaurus,
Beth Surmont,
Dr. Malcolm's Plant from Outer Space,
the supreme ruler of this podcast,
Bill Haynes,
The Hands of Fate,
Josh Frigo,
Jonathon Day,
Karen Curd,
James Taylor,
Zachary Hartley,
the McWilley House of Cats,
David Mort,
Larissa Maestro.
Travis Vance.
Jeremy Powlen.
Lindsay Nell.
Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
Shit on the Cartouche.
Caroline Amberson.
His Honor the Mayor.
Dean's Australian accent.
Heather Tuggle.
The elusive fan Gromkin.
Dramatically placed hot dog from outer space.
Jackson has an unhealthy obsession with Damon. I don't know why I stumbled over that.
Tommy Boy is Damon's favorite movie.
Particle Man.
T. Smith.
And the Zesty.
Thank you all very, very much. If you want to support
you.
like them, patreon.com/Your Inner Child is an Idiot. Maybe we'll watch the cartoon for our patrons. I don't know.
Wait, the Saturday morning cartoon?
Why not?
Isn't that so weird? I remember seeing it as a kid and being like, is this what? I mean, there's a talking plant. It's called Little Shop. Do they know what they're doing or do only I know what they're doing?
Thanks for listening, everybody. But just a mean cream of the
space and I'm back. Hold on. I can find those lyrics that are cut out, which I enjoy. Thank you.
This is some bonus Googling for you all.
Thank you. This is during a bridge. There's a double bridge in this song. Is that a term that people use? Don't talk to me about old King Kong. You think he's the worst? Well, you're thinking wrong. Don't talk to me about Frankenstein. He got a temper? Ha! He ain't got mine. Then double bridge. You know, I don't come from no Black Lagoon. I'm from past the stars and beyond the moon. You can keep the thing, keep the it, keep the creature. They don't mean shit. I think that bridge remains in the film.
That's in the movie, yeah. I remember him singing something Black Lagoon.
He also has an alternate version in the original lyrics. It's, I've got style, major moves, I got the stuff, and I think that proves you better move it out. Nature calls, you got the point, I'm going to bust your balls. But in the movie version, it's all plant stuff. He's like, I've got killer fronds, major stems, and I'm using them. Something weird. I was trying to catch it all while watching, but for some reason they changed it to more gardening. They were like, I had all these gardening terms we could use that we never used in any other song. Get them in right at the end.
Just put them all in there.
Song, just cram them into the last verse.
All right, bye everybody. Bye.
Bye.